The Cold War was different than any other war before it. Usually, when someone thinks of a war, they think about guns, blood, soldiers, blood, and bullets, etc. The Cold War took place between 1946 and 1991. It began right after World War II. During the Cold War, tensions were incredibly high, with the fear of nuclear annihilation in everyone's minds. This fear was the main reason why the Cold War was so cold. There were no guns, explosions, etc. And the main way the participating countries fired at each other was through spying and espionage. Spying and espionage was one of the main reasons why the Cold War carried on for so long. And gathering information on other countries was how any of the rivaling sides won. Gaining information on rivaling countries was pretty easy at the time, relatively speaking. Countries can pay off informers to give them information, agents can live double lives to fake working for one side but actually work for the rival, people can implant bugs on others and eavesdrop onto their conversations, or just outright steal the documents from the rivaling sides. All powers that participated in the war had dedicated government agencies for intelligence and gathering information. For the United States, it was the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. In the beginning, the CIA began as the OSS, Office of Strategic Services, which operated during World War II, and in 1947 changed its name and became the CIA we know today. The CIA also supported by the other government agencies. The NSA, National Security Agency, monitored, intercepted, and decoded radio signals. The FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigations, tracked down spies from foreign countries and held them as hostages of war or just killed them. Spies in the Cold War lived shady lives full of lies and deception, and backstabbing was a norm at the time. Moscow during the Cold War was a place like no other. The Soviet secret police, the KGB, had eyes everywhere, and nowhere was safe from their sights. If a spy were to even think about betraying the Soviet state, they would suffer major consequences. As for the consequences, nothing was off of the table. The participating countries would torture, blackmail, and would kill others for just gaining information out of someone. In February 1978, a CIA agent known as Gus Hathaway was driving from the US Embassy to his residence, but he stopped on the way for petrol. When he was leaving the station, there was a Russian bug on his car that could listen in on anything he said in the car. Mr. Hathaway was a prominent member in the CIA. He had been stationed in the CIA Moscow station, where he was appointed as chief. Gus Hathaway had a trick up his sleeve against the Russians. He was able to hire one Russian, Adolf Tolkachev, who was able to give the U.S. Russian document after Russian document. He saved the U.S. an insane amount of money, and that he was nicknamed the billion-dollar spy. He was known by only a select few people and was kept a secret because the CIA didn't want the Russians knowing about them all. But in 1985, the Russians found out about him through CIA agents working for these Russians. Tolkachev was arrested by the Russians and he was interrogated and executed. Another prominent spy was Dmitry Polyakov. Dmitry Polyakov is one of the greatest spies of the Cold War era. Polyakov was born in what is now Ukraine in 1921. After serving in the World War II, he was recruited by the GRU, the USSR's military intelligence agency. He rose through the ranks of the agency. He later began to undermine the USSR itself. Polyakov offered himself to the CIA as a double agent. At the time, he was stationed at the Soviet mission to the United Nations in New York. Though Polyakov was fiercely loyal to the USSR, he was increasingly disgusted by what he saw as the corruption and impending failure of the Soviet leaders. He offered his services to the United States. In 1990, the Soviets proclaimed Polyakov had been caught in the act of espionage, captured and sentenced to death. For years, the US suspected that Aldrich Ames, an American double agent, who was convicted of espionage against the United States in 1994, and he was an incredibly prominent spy in the Cold War. He had ratted out Polyakov. Aldrich Ames was a CIA agent who specialized in Russian intelligence services. This included the KGB. He was assigned in Ankara, Turkey, to recruit intelligence officers from Russia. On April 16th, 1985, Ames was assigned in the CIA Soviet Eastern European Division at the CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. He secretly volunteered to KGB officers at the time at the USSR embassy. While assigned in Rome, Ames continued his meetings with the KGB. They told him about the contacts in Washington, D.C., where he'd be assigned next. The KGB sent a message to him that he had been paid $1.8 million by them since he volunteered. Ames was incredibly wealthy at the time, so the CIA opened up an investigation on him because they were suspicious that he was helping foreign forces. Aldrich Ames was arrested in Arlington, Virginia by the FBI on charges of espionage February 21, 1994. When Aldrich was arrested, he was a 31-year-old veteran of the CIA. He had been spying for the Russians since 1985. The CIA arrested him and his wife, Rosario Ames, who helped him carry on his espionage activities. The war was mainly focused on the United States and the USSR, but it also happened in a lot of other places around the world. Ray Mobby used to work as an electrician in Great Britain, but then he started serving in the House of Commons in 1955 and he stopped serving there in 1983. He hated communism because he was a member of the Conservative Party, and that was a norm for them. Yet in 2012, dozens of years after his death, a BBC reporter uncovered a file showing that Mobby had been a mole working for Czechoslovakia. Hundreds of documents revealed that Mobby began secretly handing over information on the British after Czech agents first approached him. Mobby was not able to gain access to classified information, so instead Mobby supplied them with political gossip, like the existence of investigations into a Conservative Party colleague. He provided floor plans of the Prime Minister's parliamentary office. He also gave them details about the Prime Minister's security team, which for each bit of gossip he gave, Mobby received €100, which went towards his drinking and gambling addiction. In later years, they increased the total to €400 per year. The collaboration appears to have ended in 1971. Spies had hard lives during the war. They were incredibly stressed out, and they could get found out and get executed, and some feared for their families. It was an incredibly scary time because any action could have caused global annihilation by nuclear bombs.